to honor and celebrate the incredibly meaningful life of Becky Travis. As you all know, words are not enough to heal at a time like this, but words and memories can hopefully help us begin that healing process and bring us some peace. Pericles said that what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. My name is Tack Reddy, and I am truly blessed that my friend Becky's life has been woven into mine for decades. And I know that Becky is also woven into the lives of each and every one of you, her close friends and family. Some people get to live for 80 or 90 years. Becky was granted only 49, but during that time, a span worth many lifetimes of love, she wove her spirit through the souls of so many, including those she touched only briefly. Her customers at Horizon Books and Callie's, and the patrons at the Elk Rapids Library, who must have looked forward to her incredible smile, her infectious laugh, her kind words, her gentle heart. I would like to introduce 3 people who will speak today about how Becky's life will forever be woven into theirs. Jennifer Gray was a lifelong friend of Becky, as a neighbor, as kindergarten friends, as best friends in high school, and as college roommates. Their friendship never wavered. They continued affirming and building that friendship most recently just a few weeks ago on a road trip out west to Yellowstone National Park with Becky, Mason, Wallace, Wendy, Carol, Neil, and Alvaro. Wendy Kalush was another lifelong friend of Becky's. Like Jennifer, she met Becky in kindergarten and then reconnected in college. She also went on that road trip out west. She and Becky were absolutely inseparable and were truly sisters by choice. In October of 1995, Mason Showalter met Becky at Horizon Books while doing some electrical work there. He was instantly smitten, and she quickly reciprocated. They were married in July of 1997. Mason was her soulmate, and Mason and their incredible son Wallace were the loves of her life. Jennifer Gray.
My dearest Becky, I can't think of anything harder than saying this farewell to you. I couldn't even manage a goodbye to you at the end of a Michigan summer without shedding a few tears. As I write this, I am sitting at one of my favorite beaches in the north of Spain. I hope to share this magical place with you next year as we celebrated our 50th birthdays together, just as we did when we turned 5. I imagined you here so many times. We would swim out towards the European peaks in the far distance, waves crashing over the craggy rocks, your beautiful head bobbing, the sun setting. I would get out of the water just minutes after getting in, but not you. You would stay and stay and stay. With some urging, you would get out of the water just in time to witness, with all of your friends, the illusory green ray. We would hug in excitement and sit in silence, awed by nature, feeling incredibly grateful for everything. And then Wallace would ask Uncle Alvaro for a little Jimmy joke. Alas, that cannot be. But I feel incredibly grateful and so very lucky for all of the adventures and misadventures that we did experience together. Becky, thank you for sharing your generous heart and creative mind. Thank you for helping us all notice beauty in the simplest of things and for reminding us that there's a lot of good in the world when the news feed says otherwise. Thank you for the book recommendations and the wardrobe alterations. Thank you for sharing Mason and Wallace with us and for knitting together such a strong and loving community. I truly believe we are all better people because we had you as our North Star. You are a rock star, Becky Travis, and you will be missed every single day. So many of my memories of you, Becky, have to do with words. Hours of balderdash, picture sentence games, Scrabble, and most recently, Mad Libs, long newsy letters, creative stories, poetry. Remember when we took a poetry class together in college? We read poetry because we could, and we probably thought that that was what the college kids are supposed to do. We read poems at each other's weddings. So I'd like to honor you, Becky, with an excerpt of a poem by one of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver. Her love of nature and ability to notice her surroundings always makes me think of you. When death comes. When death comes, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, the cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence. And each body of lion of courage, and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Becky, thank you for living in this world and showing us how to. With gratitude, love, wonderment, and deep admiration, yours, Jennifer. And now I would like to pass the microphone to Wendy, who will share some of her thoughts. Thank you.
For this intensely long week, I have struggled to put to words the importance of Becky in my life, and mine and hers. But it is not just the story of us, as our lives have become intertwined with the lives of an ever-increasing rings of people, like the concentric circles formed by dropping a pebble in the water. While it's true that we met in kindergarten when we both lived in Kingsley, and I lured her to my house one afternoon to play, we were not the sisters we would become until well after we both reunited in northern Michigan after college. Through Becky, I reconnected with Jennifer, met Lynn, and we all became inseparable for a period of time. Our circle increased when Jennifer brought Alvaro in, and when Becky met Mason. Life took Jennifer away to Spain, and then to Baltimore, and Mason's studies took Becky and him away to Wisconsin, and then moved to Boston for a time. We always came back together. For several years, no matter where we were, we all met up in Ithaca, New York to camp, to hike, to eat at the Moosewood, and just be together. If one would need the other, we were there. An 8-hour drive to Ashland, Wisconsin, no problem. A round trip Memorial Day weekend to Maine. When Becky and Mason returned to Michigan, the three of us became a tighter unit. I have a distinct memory of being with Becky, helping her set up the kitchen, and her referring to me as her sister. That connection only continued to strengthen over the next 20 years. Being with Becky and Mason has always been the easiest thing. We share a love of books, movies, music, good food, being in nature, being in the water, expressing our creativity. In our circle, we're part of an annual ornament exchange party, hosted by our longtime friends Liz and Arik. We design and construct our own ornaments and build up this event. And the buildup of this event usually involves a gathering beforehand to assist Jack in making his ornament. Becky and I have been exchanging our handicrafts for years. I cherish the beaded earrings and necklaces, the knitted scarves, the hats, the mittens she's so generously doled out over the years. And likewise, she was the beneficiary of and the muse for so many of my sculptures and sewn items. Her closet houses the world's largest collection of wedding skirts. And it is through her persistent encouragement that I began sewing my bags and skirts to sell at Callie's. Becky brought me into the circle of Callie's during the second year of the Elk Rapids store being open. An inspiring and strong group of women formed the core of that store for years, led by Allison. Callie's hens gathered this past Sunday to be together, to laugh together, to grieve together. 7.5 years ago, through no small effort, Wallace came into the world. He tied the 3 of us, now 4 of us, closer together. I was there on that day in January, that snowy day when he was born, waiting with Gay and Dwayne to meet him for the first time. And weeks later, we began the Friday night tradition in which I took over the Elk Rapids kitchen, and where it was not unheard of for all 4 burners to be in use as I cooked for my exhausted best friends, the parents of newborn Wallace. Becky and Mason have instilled in Wallace a love of song and language, and they have supported him as he dived deep into his interest from fans to ogres, and his innate curiosity and wonder about the world. It's been a privilege to have such an intimate seat to witness the love this family shares. And I am so privileged to be a part of Wallace's life and to be Aunt Wendy. As many of you know, our inner circle, which now includes Carol and Neil, just traveled west for a week together in Yellowstone. And many of you in your remembrances have spoken about Becky's childlike wonder of the world. Looking back, her amazement at every new vista is an inspiration for me who had already seen the mountains, who'd already driven through herds of bison, who's traveled and seen a lot, to take nothing for granted now, to look at everything and everyone with fresh eyes. In this long week of contemplation and reflection, I have had time to sit still and observe what's around me. Monarchs are back and they seem abundant, and Becky would love that. Kate, our new addition to our circle, pointed out the ever-present hum of bees in Becky's beautiful meadow of a backyard, the hummingbirds at her bee balm. And so many of you have shared poignant observations about Becky, about how her life impacted your life, both in large ways and in smaller ways that would have otherwise seemed insignificant. This fresher look illuminates how these pebbles of her goodness, her kindness, her positivity, that she tossed so thoughtfully and so easily, have created waves that have reflected back upon us, washing over us in your warm embrace. What this sudden absence will mean, as those who knew and were touched by Becky continue to push forward through time, is yet to be seen, but we are thankful for the time that we were able to share with her. Mason.
Thank you all for being here today. It means so much to us. Just my mic stand. How do you start this? I've asked myself again and again. I'll start by asking all of you to feel the assembled presence of those around us and to ponder the commonalities of affection that have brought us here today. like to start with all of you. Over the past days, I've told so many of you that you were special to Becky, that Becky loved you, that Becky told me about her interactions with you every time. It's not that she looked on the world with a blanket vision of generalized love. She endeavored to see all of you for who you are and who you're trying to be in the world. It wasn't always easy. When you hurt, she hurt for you. She struggled at times, like anyone, to make connection, but she always endeavored to connect by understanding you, not to interpret you through a lens of her own values. But too, when you were happy, when you felt the joy of new learning, when you felt love, she felt it with you. And if you didn't know her, or knew her just a bit, you felt her influence in the world through me. And through me, she knew you. She loved fiercely and tenderly. And in one way or another, all of you shared in that love. Becky found her vocation through the library. While the grounds, structure, and of course the books are beautiful, she understood the true heart of the library, and that it is not found in artifacts, but in the people, the community it serves. And she strove to find how best to serve all the members of the community and meet their needs. I think about the good she did in our communities, how she touched our lives, the differences big and small she made in all of us, personally and professionally. And now she's gone. Who will carry on that work? More than one person has said recently that she was the best of all of us. And while I won't argue the point, she wouldn't have agreed. What you saw in her, the beaming smile, the joy, the keen interest, was a direct reflection of what she saw in you. I ask you to take to heart over these days and months as you mourn and begin to heal. And while we are deprived of her vibrant presence in this world, what you admired and were attracted to in her is a part of you. Her charge in the community is now ours. Reflect on that. Find what resonates with you, and when the time is right, take action. Bring it to life. As for me, as I strive to find my way in this new world, I reflect on the depth of gratitude I feel for Becky. The love I was so fortunate to feel shining directly on me for so many days. And the shared love that brought our beloved son Wallace into the world. I may forget some things over the coming years, but I will never forget the love that illuminated her face when she looked at Wallace. I've struggled with the whys, the what ifs, struggled to understand how this is even real. How can this be right? It can't be right. As strange as this might sound to your mind, I find myself contending with the thought that if this can be so, what do right and wrong mean? We try to do our best in the world and follow the ways that seem right to us. but still all over the world, all throughout time, heedless of our needs, heedless of our values and principles. Those we love are struck down, as we too one day will be. And so I'm left to rediscover what truth is, what the moment has to teach me and Wallace, along with you, as we find our new way in the world. While we are built to withstand the seemingly insurmountable hammer blows of this grief, we emerge, forged anew into a world so familiar and yet almost unrecognizable. And as I walk through this world and our paths cross, whether I'm greeted with your smile and embrace, or you turn away in your own pain and struggle, I will see what Becky saw in you. And feel her love alive in this world.
Becky's family would like to invite any of you who would like to speak to please feel free to come up to the microphone and share a few memories of or thoughts about Becky. Please speak clearly at the microphone. So I can hear you.
I'm Carol Thorson, friend of the family. Watched Becky grow up with our boys. And I'm sent here to speak right now as a messenger. Otherwise, I'd be sitting right in that chair. Okay, so just a second, I have to write this down to get it right. During Becky's senior year at Kingsley High School, the Travis family grew by one more. As an area representative for Youth for Understanding Student Exchange Program, I placed Jose from Venezuela with the Travis family. At the same time, our family hosted a student from Japan, a girl named Satoko, with whom we still have a close relationship. Becky quickly welcomed Satoko into her group of friends and made Sako feel at home here. Their friendship was so important to Satoko that a few years later, Sako came all the way from Kamaishi, Japan, for Becky and Mason's wedding. And it was a surprise to Becky. It was a very special moment when she saw Sako. Well, when sharing news with Becky, Satoko not only asked me to send Becky's family her deepest sympathy, but to deliver another message. And as it seems to me that Becky is with all of us here in this place at this time, it is an appropriate time to deliver this message to Becky from Satoko. And this is Sako's words to Becky. Thank you, Becky. I'm sorry I can't do this in Japanese. You were always very, very kind, and you helped me a lot at school. I cannot forget your warm smile. I send my love to you and to Kingsley.
If anybody else would like to come up, please feel free.
I hate public speaking and I don't even know what I'm going to say. No, is that where it's supposed to be? Is that like that? Okay. Becky. You just fill a space with love. Just that simple. Just in the most humble way. You know, you would just walk in a room, or she would walk in and she would see you and those pink cheeks. So beautiful. She's one of the most beautiful humans I've ever known. A role model. I didn't know what I was going to say when I walked up here, but one thing that comes to mind is the first time I saw Becky walking out of Horizon Books. And Mason, I don't know if everyone read this, but on Facebook, Mason, I think you talked about seeing Becky walk out of Horizon and you saw this person who was in love with the universe. And that's just how she was. And I remember about 25 years ago, I was working at Callie's on Union Street, and I was driving to work after school one day, and I looked over, and there's this woman coming out of this young person, 20-something, coming out of Horizon Books, and I just thought, I love her. Who is that? And like 3 weeks later, my little sister, with whom I'm really close, was like, have you met that new girl at Horizon Books? I love her. She was just like that, and I hope that some other people who maybe don't know what they're going to say will just walk up and grab this mic, because I think Mason would really like to hear some stories, and I know Wendy's besties would really like to hear some stories. Is there anybody?
I'm Barb Whitaker, and I was privileged to be Becky's teacher, English teacher for 2 years. She was by far my ideal of a good student, a great student. Not because she wanted A's, she wasn't working for A's, not because she sucked up to anybody, but because she loved to learn. And further than that, she loved to share what she learned. And that's such a precious thing. And I'm so happy to know that in her life, that's what she did, share what she learned. She was in a junior class that was very small, a nice little American Lit class, the kind of class teachers just dream for, with students that, I mean, I'd say half of them were leaders. They were all great students, but I had all this leadership in this class. And this class lost one of their classmates to a car accident. And they liked him, they admired him so much that they decided they wanted to do something, and they chose to make a scholarship in his name. A scholarship which would represent what they thought he represented, but it really represented what they did too, and particularly Becky. They loved to learn. They were enthusiastic about life, positive, just a delight in all kinds of ways. They inspired me, and they made me a better teacher. And Becky was very much at the front of that. I so appreciated her.
My name is Nancy Baker, and I met Becky when she worked at Callie's several years ago in Traverse City, and it was an expensive meeting, as it turned out. Starting that summer, I saw Becky 2, 3, 4 times a month. And I was thrilled when, even for a short time, she worked in Elk Rapids, which meant I could spend more on clothes and less on gas money going into Traverse City. And she made her job absolutely look effortless. Genuinely considering your taste and never being pushy about a purchase, just happy that you were there. And soon she felt more like a friend. And the more I visited the store, the more she understood my style, and the more we did become friends. And she would say things like, hey, we just got something in, and I think it would be nice for you, and it always was. And then she would say, hey, we have some new things that just arrived, they're not even hung up yet, would you like to peek at them? I always did. And soon I realized that while I really loved the clothing and the goods at the shop, I was not addicted to shopping, I was addicted to Becky. Her smile, as many people have talked about today, came from somewhere very deep inside of her and always took the edge off of a day that was otherwise dull or troublesome. She made me want to know her better, and soon she was sharing small personal thoughts and comments like, hey, we moved to Elk Rapids. Mason and I are a little worried, though, about the fact that only a short parking lot separates us from the Village Market ice cream cooler. Or she would say, we painted our house. We finally painted our house. It's this really cool green. It didn't come out quite the way we wanted, but we think it's really kind of cool, and we're going to leave it that way. We just hope the neighbors don't mind. And then when Wallace came along, she said, we're naming the baby Wallace. He was my favorite character in The Wire. That character was so good and so kind and so true. So I wanted to just wrap this up with something I think is fitting for someone who became a librarian, and that's with a literary allusion and a quote from my favorite author, Willa Cather, who wrote, I was entirely happy. Perhaps we feel like that when we die and become part of something entire, whether it's the sun or the air or the goodness or knowledge. At any rate, that is happiness, to be dissolved into something complete and great. Complete and great, that was Becky. And I count myself lucky to have known her.
Well, Becky would love to laugh, so I have a story to tell. I was her high school biology teacher, and we have several of 88, 87 alumni here. You might remember the story. I don't think Saxon is yours, so we'll blame this on Saxon. We dissect the cat in advanced biology, and we've gone through the muscles, and now we're in the internal anatomy, and of course that intestines, and so the kids had a great idea. On the old high school, there's fluorescent lights up here to make a great pulley. And so let's say Saxon thought of this and ran a rope from that light with the intestines right next to Becky's seat. So, and I knew this was going on. I was taking attendance, and Becky came, sat down in her seat. Slowly, the intestine came down to the light until it's right on her left shoulder. And she turned around and, of course, screamed, and that everybody else laughed, and she got a great laugh out of it too. So, but thanks, Saxon, for that. We'll blame him.
Well, like Mary, I didn't really know what I was going to say, but one time a while ago, I saw a picture that Wallace and Becky took of a water tower. And then I saw another one, and another one Mason had. And so, in my travels working, my business partner and I started looking for interesting water towers for Wallace to send to Mason and Becky pictures of. And I realized that it made me stop and look about where I was. Even if we were in the middle of Chicago and crazy And we chock full of all kinds of traveling things, but we were trying to send pictures of water towers back to Mason and Becky because they might not have seen that one. And I said something about this on social media, but whenever I ran into Becky, and it was more than just feeling like I wanted to pass on her light, whenever I walked away from seeing her, I felt a compulsion to spread kindness with somebody else that I encountered. That I couldn't keep it inside because I had built up from that encounter that wanted to burst out onto the next person that I could find. And that was such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And every time I ran into her, even just for a couple of seconds, I would always later tell Steve, my husband, guess who I saw today? And so that's how I always think of Becky. It was like she was beaming the kindness into me, even into the next person that I encountered. With water towers like this.
Mason, I opened your card that I wrote to you. I loved how kind and pure Becky was to everyone, including herself. She wore red lipstick when she got dressed up and a little rouge on her cheeks, and gosh, did she look beautiful. She sure loved my valor. I could see it in her eyes, the way her heart smiled, and she just lit up. That made my heart sing. I loved that I could be honest with her, and I loved it that she came and visited me more than once when I was on maternity leave. She was just so kind and thoughtful. I loved how she called you Mace, and she loved it how you called her back. I loved it that she viewed me as a go-getter, and I loved how amazed she was about my house projects. I never knew about eating rainbows until I read what you wrote. I thought that was adorable, and I'm still learning new things about life from her. She's simply the best, an absolute gem.
Well, like others, I hadn't planned on doing this either, but see what I can do. So, I'm Laura Travis, and I'm married to Ben. Okay. I had the fortune to have a wonderful sister-in-law. Becky and I always, over the last 20-some years, we would catch each other's eyes across the room when somebody was saying something that was just really ridiculous. Really ridiculous. And we'd make contact, and I would usually roll my eyes, and Becky would do that little smile that I keep seeing in the videos, and she'd tilt her head. And way back in 1996, Becky and I were both dating the men in our lives. She was dating Mason, and I was dating Ben. In December of 1996, after going over to Ben's grandparents' house and having a shot, when Ben and I got engaged, one of the other next people we called was Becky. And Becky said to me, she said, "I see it. You make my brother very happy." A few months later, Becky and Mason got engaged. And I can vividly remember the conversation. Becky called me and she said, "We got engaged after you. You can get married first." And I said, it's okay, Beck. And she said, "Well, I'd like a July wedding." I said, "You can have it. I don't like July. It's too hot." So, we settled on July, and Becky and Mason, they did that, and then Ben and I did September. And from then on, I had a wonderful sister in my life. I look at Becky and my relationship as snippets over the last several years. My husband and I live in the Upper Peninsula, and Becky and Mason came up to see us every so often. And where Becky was, probably Mason doesn't even know this, or Ben, but when Ben was deployed to Iraq from 2004 through
February of 2006, I would just get a very brief phone call from Becky checking on Mitch and I, our son Mitch. Mitch was 4 and 5 years old at the time. And Becky wanted to know how I was doing. She worried about her brother, but she worried about Mitch and I. And I always appreciated those little brief phone calls. Sometimes I would be at work and she would call, and it was just little snippets. Last year, Becky and Mason Wallace came up and we got to celebrate our son's high school graduation. And I leaned on Becky for her expertise in decorating a fair building at a fairgrounds in the rural Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And if anybody could help turn it into a wonderful place for our son's graduation, it was Becky. She just did a wonderful job of decorating for our son Mitch. And Mitch was here last week, and he was sitting on the couch with Wallace, and here's 2 cousins. Our son is almost 20 and Wallace is 7, and they sat on the couch just like they do every time we come down and visit. It doesn't matter the years difference between those 2 boys. They were cousins, and I know Becky loved Mitch, and Mitch loved Becky. One final funny story, and this is, my mother-in-law will have to forgive me. So at that graduation last year, my mother-in-law was standing in the kitchen in this farm building, and she was shredding all the pork that I had cooked for months and put in the freezer. She was shredding, putting it in a roaster. Becky and I were scurrying around, trying to decorate, doing all these things. And we rolled our eyes many times at things that were happening, and she'd run to fix something that wasn't quite right before guests started arriving. And Becky and I walked into the kitchen, and my mother-in-law picked up a 2-gallon size bag of what she thought was pork. She had a roaster full of shredded pork. She picked up the bag, she turned it upside down and dumped it in, and it was the taco meat that was supposed to be in the taco salad. Becky was the eyes that I fixed on. Becky rolled her eyes, and it was, oh, mother. And it was just Becky, it was her and I, it was the eyes. We always met with each other's eyes for all the silly little things. So thank you everyone for letting me share Becky in her life, and Mason Wallace. You mean the world to us, even though we're far away. So thank you.
I'm Jeff. I was very privileged to have Becky as my younger cousin. No, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. But this is how I remember Becky before I moved to a young little girl. And in our family, she happened to be the youngest of a bunch of us. And between the girls, there was a bunch of boy cousins in between. There was Kelly Kim, and I think it was Tony, Mike, and Randy, and her brother Ben, and me. And then there was Becky at the end, who always tried to play with us boys, and we always seemed like, you're a girl. We want to play with our G.I. Joes and our bikes and have a good old time. But Becky never got mad at us, no matter how bad we picked on her. She always smiled and was always nice. She got mad a few times, I'm sure. But just listening to everybody, I just wish I got to know her when she was older. It sounds like she was a beautiful person, both inside and out. And I wish I would have kept that connection with her, because she sounded like a wonderful person by listening to you all talk. And the one thing I just remember her is her being at her mom and dad's house, and it was winter time, and we were all playing by the pond, and guess who fell in the pond? Me. Whoops. Well, anyway. See if we can fix it now. Oh, never mind. Anyway. It was just nice of her to go get her mom too. Get me all warm and dry. And helping her brother pick me out of the pond. So I just wish I got to know her a little bit better as we got older. Oh, thanks. So she will always be in my heart. She was a beautiful person. Back then and now. I will always miss her. And Mason, you'll always be part of this family no matter what. You and Wallace both. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Powell, and I just have to honor Gabe Travis and Dwayne Travis. I started teaching when I was a young thing in Kingsley, and Gabe Travis was my lifeline and my mentor. And she was just the most wonderful person. And then I was lucky enough to become pregnant and with a child, and left Kingsley and started teaching over in Sutton's Bay. And my daughter Ashley had the privilege of working at Callie's with Becky. And I told Ashley the other night just how honored I am that she could know the Travis family, because they are the heart and soul of Kingsley, and they are just the most wonderful people on this earth. So I thank God for Gay and Dwayne and Becky and my daughter Ashley. Namaste.
I met Becky when she was about 2 weeks old. I'm one of her oldest cousins. Every time we saw Becky, which wasn't often enough, I would just look at her and go, wow, she is just the epitome of unconditional love. She just inspired me from when she was little. And just sit here and see everybody else talking about her just makes me know that she treated everybody like family, like she did us. And we will keep her in our hearts forever. She left a footprint. Big one.
Yeah.
I'm Becky's aunt, Sue Bowden. I'm from Massachusetts originally. I've known Becky since she was 2 or 3. And I always insisted that she and Ben call me aunt, not aunt, like you all do in Michigan. And Becky always did. I wanted to share 2 memories of her in particular. I do apologize for coming so casually dressed. We found out about Becky on our way up here. We moved to Florida, and we kept our trailer in Muskegon, and I said, well, what am I going to need to wear anything for? So the best I could do today was to wear my Michigan shirt, because I went to Michigan. And one of the most profound memories of Becky I have, that probably none of you know, but those of you that know her well know that Becky did not like football. And so when Becky went to the University of Michigan, I love football. And Becky, I think she gave me the football tickets that Gay and Dwayne bought her. I don't know if I ever paid her for it. Back then they were $60. I guess I owe you $60. But, and so one of the privileges I had was I got to sit, and I was about 40-something. I sat in the junior and senior student section. But it was thanks to Becky. Ben, by the way, never offered me his tickets, but Becky did. And the other memory I have with Becky is Christmas. Becky was the epitome of Christmas. We all spent every Christmas together at her grandparents' house. And Becky was the first one up. Becky was the one that passed out all the presents, and there was such joy in her face. So Mason, I promise you, from Mike, our 3 children who couldn't be here, your Christmas will still be about Becky, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure her spirit is with you at that time.
I'm not going to tell you my name because my name doesn't matter. What matters here today is Becky's name, and I've heard so much, and I just agree with so much. I only knew Becky from the library and from bringing my grandkids there. And when you saw Becky, you were immediately her friend. Becky didn't know anyone who wasn't her friend. And Becky always made time for you, no matter what was happening. You never felt like she was rushed or couldn't show you how to do something or how to find a book or where this was or where that was. She always had time for all of us. And I know we'll all remember her always in a very special way. I have two of my grandsons right here that are actually wanting to get going because we've been here long too long. And Becky had just helped them make one of the cranes for the Harbor Days. And she helped them with many things, many projects at the library. She always made you feel so welcome and so loved. And I hear that in everybody's voice, how loved she made us all feel. So we're always going to remember her that way. Thank you.
I didn't meet Becky until she came to Elk Rapids to the library. And I will totally miss her smiling face. But I've been watching everyone and seeing everyone speaking and seeing everyone's aura as they spoke. There's an energy here. There's a light here. Becky was a light to Elk Rapids. I've tried for many, many years to try and bring people together here. She did it. And you know, there's something about, I forgot my train of thought, but there's something about an occasion like this where everybody's armor comes off. And that's what really is. That's what is in this world. We put this in the way instead of this. I walk down my street and I wave at everybody who comes by, and everybody waves because everybody wants community. Everybody wants light. And Becky brought that to us. And I feel like, as Mason said, we have an obligation to pay that forward.
My name's Krista, and our kids have gone to preschool together. And this is a lot of people. Actually, can you do me a favor and not look at me? I'm serious. This makes me feel very uncomfortable. I'm going to actually get down low. I've just been so touched by, I'll just not look at you. That's my solution. Mason, I've just been really touched by the sharings that you put out publicly. You know, we would see you guys around town after you guys moved over here, and while I started going to school, and just all the music in your life. And there's this song that I've been singing. It was inspired, like, I think it just came to me because you showed a picture of Becky in the water and how much she loved the water. So I wanted to share a song with you in addition to being in front of people, which is just fun. So maybe I sing it, and if you think we should sing it together, maybe you'll sing it with me. I'll sing it twice, I don't know. The river is flowing, flowing and growing. The river is flowing down to the sea. Oh, mother, carry me, your child I will always be. Oh, mother, carry me home to the sea. The river is flowing, flowing and growing. The river is flowing down to the sea. Oh, mother, carry me, your child I will always be. Oh, mother, carry me home to the sea.
I don't want to talk. Becky was brave. She didn't like public speaking at all. I remember at least one time So proud. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid of a future without Becky. It's everything everyone has said. She made you feel like you were the center in the moment you were with her. She made time. It's not just for patrons, it's for friends. I'm a fly-by friend. I come to town, for like a weekend from another country, and she drops everything. We have big plans, and now we have to do it without her. All of the hopefulness of Becky. We're gonna have to channel it for each other. It's the only way I can see forward. And I'm so grateful.
I got to meet Becky. I arrived here as an exchange student. And the children on Crockett Road thought I was from Mars or something. And Becky and Jennifer were a huge part of providing friendship and some fun activities that year, and really took me in. And I just wanted to tell one story. When we got the opportunity to travel to New York City. And Becky thought that going to New York City meant that we should all bring fancy hats. And somehow, these fancy hats appeared, and we got to walk down Fifth Avenue, which at the time was still incredibly fancy. And we wore our hats and we felt so special. And I have many memories of Becky spending time like that, and I just cherish them. And then we were so glad to see Mason come into Becky's life, and Vita Wallace, and just such a wonderful couple.
I'm Stacy, and I was very lucky to work with Becky at Callie's. I think we all were. She's always a Callie's girl. She'll always be a Callie's girl, even though she went to the library. But I just remember one day working, and I was going upstairs. Allison, the owner, was upstairs doing orders. And she stopped me and said, "Stacy, will you please have Allie order some color?" Like her mousy colors at Callie's. I said, "Darn it, I'll try my best." One other thing I'd like to share is my daughter was in Girl Scouts, and she had met Becky a couple times, and I told her about her, and her loves chocolate. And May said to me, "Mom, will you bring that cookie order in? Because I just know Becky will order those mint chocolate or mint cookies." So, anyway, we'll all miss her.
Okay, thank you all for your beautiful words today. I'd like to close today with a few thoughts of my own about Becky. Becky always saw things through the eyes of a child. She was like Peter Pan. She never lost her sense of awe, her sense of wonder, her joy of experiencing a warm summer day on a beach or a crisp winter hike through the woods. And that joy was contagious, as we have seen today. More than anyone I know, Becky made all of us feel that same happiness. Maya Angelou said that people will forget what you say, they will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you make them feel. Becky made all of us feel good. She made us feel warm. She made us feel optimistic. She made us feel joyful. Because despite our faults, she found the good in all of us. But Becky was never naive. She was too smart for that. But she somehow moved through life's difficulties without ever becoming cynical. So my wish for all of us is that as we move through the grieving process, we realize Becky has left each and every one of us with her legacy of joy, her legacy of awe, her legacy of wonder. I know she has done so. We've seen it here today. Sometimes we'll need to look for it, but it's there. To paraphrase Professor Dumbledore, you think that the dead we loved ever truly leave us? You think that we don't recall them in times of great trouble? Becky is alive in all of us, and she will show herself most plainly when we need her. So to continue celebrating what she has left in all of us, we invite anyone who wishes to do any or all of the following. As you leave the hall today, write a memory on the memory tree. And there are cards over behind Alvaro here. There are cards here that you can fill out. And if you would like, you can put them in the basket there or hang them on the tree if you would like to. Palo Santo, holy wood in Spanish, purportedly has a lot of benefits and is admired by shamans and scientists alike, Wendy says. Or Wendy quotes somebody as saying. Becky may have believed this, but really she liked to watch it burn and enjoy how it smelled. So please feel free to take one as you leave the pavilion. And where are they?
I think it's the orange basket.
Yeah.
They're in the kitchen.
They'll be out.
They will be
Out by the door. Over there.
In here somewhere.
In an
this
orange basket.
Front area. When you are home sometime and remembering Becky, follow the directions written on the provided slip of paper and light it. In a few moments, join us for a walk down the hill to the beach to swim in Grand Traverse. Which way? That way. Okay, we'll follow Mason for a swim in Grand Traverse Bay. Join us later tonight at Ethnology. I've not been there yet. A local distillery on Ames Street, to buy a cocktail and continue sharing your memories of Becky. And finally, consider doing the following Becky recommended activities that Mason wrote about in Becky's beautiful obituary. Swim whenever possible, as long as possible. Ride a bike. Walk your child to school in any weather. Eat a rainbow. Make a difference in your community. Read aloud to someone of any age. Dress to express the inner you outwardly. Plant something for the pollinators. Strive to understand others from their own point of view. Embrace adventure. Counter injustice with caring. Fold a paper crane. Pick up 5 pieces of trash every time you go to the beach. Contribute to the Elk Rapids Library Capital Campaign. Smile from your heart and actualize your dreams. She did all of these things, and so can we. Thank you all for coming.